Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Winners on a Wednesday. This week I have the pleasure of bringing onto the show Gareth van Rensburg. How's it going, buddy?
Very good, Samuel. Thanks for having me.
You know what? I'm really grateful that you've been on the show. You've had some cracking deals since doing some training. Why don't you just give us a little bit of background, a little bit about yourself, and we'll kick off.
Brilliant. Well, I came over to England in 1999 on a journey, basically, just a 6-week holiday. But I stayed and I thought to myself, well, this is a lovely country, so I'm going to stay here.
I almost did the same when I went to South Africa.
It is beautiful, isn't it? It's absolutely fantastic. So basically, then my wife came over to actually join me on that, and we decided to buy our first house in 2001 together because we started our own little family. And since then, we've been interested in property, but our careers took off, so we needed to go and work and do our own things. But in 2009, when the crash happened, in 2008, 2009, basically my house rented out. It was rented out, and I saw I was getting more rent in than what I did before. And that triggered something in my mind that maybe you should look further into this because there's something that's actually happening there.
Wow.
So we sat down as a family and we discussed, well, you know, we couldn't sell this house in 2000 when we actually moved in 2002. Is there anything that we can do to actually invest further in property? Because this one's renting out now, and it's been renting out for 2 years at a really good rental income. The mortgage was completely low on it, so we were making a really good profit. So we decided, that's it, we're going to look at other ways to actually do it.
So were you like an accidental landlord, so to speak?
I was an accident. I wasn't expecting to be a landlord. What actually happened was we moved into this house, a 2-bed house, and we stayed there for 18 months, and we had children, so we decided to move to a 3-bed, and we tried to sell it, but at the time the market was completely dead.
Yeah.
We couldn't sell it at all.
So you moved out and rented, so you became a tenant again.
Yeah.
Which is really good because I think it's Grant Cardone who says that you're better off to be a tenant yourself and then buy somewhere and rent out. So you kind of did that accidentally and realised how much money you were making.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. And then what happened? So
then basically life took over. We had children and we started bringing them up. And then in 2014, I had a career change where I decided, okay, I was made redundant basically, so I decided to look at new ventures. So I started my own little business at first to see if I could make money, and that started going well.
What was that business?
In-zone hosting. So we actually host people's websites for them.
Cool.
And then in 2015, I was watching YouTube one day, and your name pops up, and I thought to myself, okay, yeah, HMOs, do they really work? Yeah. And that got me interested. And I thought I'm going to come to a crash course just to see exactly what it's actually about.
So hang on a minute though, because 2015, that was like 4 years ago now.
Sorry, yes. So
it took you a long time to come to the crash course. What took you so long?
Oh, well, sorry, blooper again, yeah. But basically then we started looking up at that time we were actually looking at property, but we couldn't afford to buy in our local area because prices had actually skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So was it in 2017, it was you on YouTube?
Yeah. I don't know, because I've been on YouTube since 2015. Maybe it took you a few years.
Yeah, well, I can't remember the exact dates, but I found you where you were actually on YouTube talking about HMOs, and how you could take a 2 or 3-bed house and turn it into a 5-bed house quite easily, and make massive returns. So I decided to come and meet you, and I went to the crash course, and I brought my father, my mother, and my wife as well to that crash course, and it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, we walked away with that absolutely pinging with new ideas and new ways of doing things. So what we did was we invested up north, in single lets because that's the way that we like doing it. And we bought a nice one off your list as well, off your deal finding list. And we bought that for £40,000 and we get £450 a month rent for that.
So you bought it for 40,000 and you're renting it for 450. Yeah. That is an incredible yield. Yeah. And I bet the return on investment is even better. Did you get a mortgage on that property?
Yes, the mortgage is £146 a month.
So the mortgage, is that interest only or repayments?
Repayments.
Repayments? Yeah. So you're paying £146 a month, and that's repayment. So the interest payments must be probably half that, I would imagine.
Yeah. So it's basically, in my mind, the way I like to do things is I go into an area where I don't just blindly walk into an area. Yeah. I first go into an area and look at the entire area to see what manufacturing is happening there, to see if there's any people building houses. And I found that the area that I chose to focus in, there was actually manufacturing being built. So people were building factories for people to work in. So that's how I choose my areas as well. So,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so the house that was rented out and it's been absolutely fine since then.
And I think the cool thing is about that is not only is it giving you a really good return on investment, what kind of returns are you getting?
Over 20%.
Yeah, because I know you, like me, you won't touch it if it's less than 20%.
It's got to give me a good return before I get involved in it.
Yeah. But also, not only that, but these properties, you bought them really cheap, you're renting them out very well, but the capital appreciation is expected to be really good as well, because these properties have bottomed out, haven't they? So we've got, hopefully, what are your expectations for the future of the price of the property?
Well, basically, I'm expecting that price to go up to 70,000 in the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we in a contraction environment. So once the expansion happens, after Brexit's finished and everything else, I'm expecting those prices to go up to around about 65 to 70,000 pounds.
Yeah.
For that same property.
And at the end of the mortgage, you'll have paid it off.
Yeah.
So basically, it's almost like the tenants rent, you're getting a few £100 a month profit.
Well, the way that we work it is we work very differently to most people, where we've got a separate account where all those rents go into, and we actually accumulate that to actually buy more. So
Brilliant.
So we don't actually spend that, we don't use that money at all.
Yeah.
So on your crash course, we learned how to actually create different accounts and put the money into different accounts.
Yeah.
So we're following that exact same strategy
Well done,
for
mate.
all the houses. And that makes complete sense, because we can see in that pocket we've got money for maintenance, in that pocket we've got money for buying new ones, and that's for spending on other things as well. So
fantastic.
It works 100%.
Love that. And ultimately then, like, you buy one house for 40 grand, the deposit, how much deposit did you put down?
We put down 25%.
So that's only £10,000.
Yeah.
So 10 grand.
And plus legal fees, 3,000.
Yeah. So all in all, it's comfortably less than 15.
Yeah.
So people think, I can't afford to buy a house, it's really expensive. But actually, you don't need that much money. And then once you've done that, if you set it up right and put the profits into a separate bank, you can then start slowly snowballing it, and it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And you've also, I know you've been working on some lease option agreements and some other types of deals.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. What have you learned from the training then? So what's been the biggest?
Well, the main thing I took away from the training was mindset. You got to change your mindset in the way you think.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about, should I do it or how am I going to do it? Get trained up and you know exactly how to do it. Follow a process on exactly what you do every day, and then just do that.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking things.
Yeah, I know we were talking a bit earlier about how important training is, but then also how important implementation is.
Yeah.
Because if you go on a training course but you don't do it, then it's actually completely pointless.
Yeah. So after the actual DFE, I went away and I organised my big day for like 2 weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
And myself and my wife went up to the Leeds area and we looked at over 35 properties. And then we went to Durham and we looked at a further 40 properties.
Wow.
So,
jeez. Yeah. And you've been finding such good deals. I mean, they're ridiculous. Like that first one that you bought was, like 20% below market value, was it?
Yeah.
So what was the true value of that one? You bought it for 40. What was it worth?
It was worth 65,000.
65,000.
Yeah.
And I've seen the figures. How can you be sure that it really is worth 65,000?
Well, we go into Rightmove and we actually look at what the actual previous property sold at. So you can actually get a good feeling of what they actually sold at. So you can see what the actual value was at that time.
Yep.
So that's how we actually do our basis. And also by speaking to estate agents and getting their indication as well.
Yeah.
How much they actually sell for.
Yeah. Talk to estate agents, look at the street, see what that one sold for, others like it. Fantastic. Well, that's brilliant. And your second property as well, that was also heavily below market value?
Yes, we actually got that for 58,000. And they wanted 70 for that initially.
They wanted 70 for it. You got it for 58.
Yeah.
And how much was it worth when you bought it?
Probably 65,000.
Yeah.
65,000.
So again, quite heavily below market value.
Yeah.
How much are you renting that one out for?
For 450 a month as well.
450. Now let me ask you a question, because one of the things that people I think are scared of, and it'd be great to get your view on this because you've been there and done it now over the last sort of 6-12 months, is they're worried that they're going to buy one of these cheap houses up north. They're going to buy it really cheap. They're going to rent it out. The return on investment on paper looks fantastic. But their concern is that they're going to, because it's such a cheap house, they're going to attract really bad tenants. They're going to have problems, nightmares, bad management, and it's just going to be a headache. How have you found your experience over the last, well, how long have you owned these for then?
Well, I've owned the first one for 18 months and the second one for 6 months now.
Okay, so what's your experience been on that? What's it like?
I had a bad tenants as my first tenants. I'll admit that. It was a complete catastrophe. They destroyed the house.
Wow.
They destroyed the house completely inside.
So okay, we'll get back to that in a minute, but okay, carry on.
Yeah, so after that, I learned from the processes of basically stop trying to take anybody and who comes along. Yeah. And stick to a strict criteria of the person that you want to rent your house.
Yes.
So I decided to go for families who needed to go to local schools. So that's the way I did it.
Yeah, really interesting. Massive lesson then.
Yeah, it was we couldn't believe it. We got a phone call one Monday morning to say that they'd stopped paying rent and that they'd basically destroyed the whole house inside.
How much did it cost to get it all fixed up?
$5,500. Yeah, $5,500.
Wow.
Yeah, we couldn't believe it. It was
a very expensive mistake.
Yeah.
That was, and that's something, that was before you went to the DFE though, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically, yeah, it was.
Because I know at the DFE we talk about this kind of thing. So, wow, okay. So what did you learn from that then? You learned to vet the tenants properly.
I actually learned, the first thing was use the correct agents.
Yeah.
Vet the agents to make sure that they know what they're talking about. That's
100%.
the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Then get them to vet the actual tenants and do credit checks and do everything else as well, because that's vitally important.
Because if it's costing £5,500, that's a lot of money. That's
it's your profit gone for the year.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like 10% of the value of the house. It's absolute madness. You must have felt absolutely heartbroken when that happened.
I couldn't understand why somebody would actually do that, because in my mind, what I'm trying to do is create a lovely home for families to live in.
Yeah,
where they can live in and bring up their children.
Yeah,
and just enjoy life.
Do you think that, so in one way, that's the kind of story why people are scared? What do you think is going to make sure that doesn't happen again, or could it happen again?
I'm not saying it's not going to happen again. It could happen again, but now we're extra vigilant on who comes into our houses.
Yeah.
We've also gone one step further and bulletproofed the house. So we've put in new carpets that are actually, they're actually plastic based, so they can't be destroyed no matter what.
Yes.
They look really nice, they feel really nice, but you can mess bleach or oil on them, it's not going to destroy them. They are completely bulletproof. Great
tip, yeah. I know something that I do is I put decent carpets in, but I'll have the two different colours, so brown and then like a beige. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And they're quite hard, but they look nice, they feel nice, but if you spill things on them, it doesn't show up very easily, which is much better than like a cream carpet in a tenanted house.
Yeah.
So these little tricks and tips are really important, aren't they, as being an investor?
Yeah, and I also stopped providing white goods because we found that they were breaking down quite often because people weren't looking after them.
Yeah.
So we stopped providing white goods and we just painted the house, make it look nice, and rent it out.
Do you think that is a problem just generally speaking as being a landlord full stop, or do you think that it's because the houses that you bought were so cheap, 40, 50 grand type houses, do you think that is going to attract bad people? Do you regret buying those houses, or do you think that...
No, I don't. I don't regret buying it at all, because I've seen cases where even in expensive houses, the same thing happens. So it hasn't stopped me from changing strategy. I'm still continuing the same strategy as I have before.
Yeah.
I'm still, and I wouldn't consider them cheap houses. It's just houses where people can't afford to buy them, basically. So we're actually helping the local economy in a way. Yeah.
Something that I've kind of noticed, because I've got a lot of houses that are similar to yours. I've got properties in Middlesbrough and places where I bought them for say 56 grand, rent them out for about £500 a month. Return on investment is fantastic. There are some areas that are benefit streets, shall we say, or very undesirable areas, red light districts, broken glass in the street. You can just tell, I don't want to buy a house here. But just because an area is very cheap and the houses are £50,000-60,000, it doesn't necessarily mean that the people are bad, because at the end of the day, people are people, and there's often really nice communities and villages and estates where the people are very nice and the families are great, but it's just a very cheap area and you're going to get a much higher return on investment. So what are the pros and what do you think are the cons, if there are any, about buying properties that are really, really cheap? What are the, well, I say cheap, I mean low value. What would you say the pros and cons are?
The actual pros are you can buy lots of them because you don't need a large capital outlay to buy them. The cons are they're quite far north, so you need a good power team to be able to stand by you and make sure that those properties are looked after all the time.
Yeah. Because
basically where I live to the properties is more than a 7-hour journey. It's too far for me to actually travel. So what I've done is I've built a power team around me that looks after every aspect of the property. So I only have to make one phone call and that team sorts everything out for me.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's one of the things, I know we do that at the Deal Finding Extravaganza. We talk about your patch and your power team. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that helped with what you've done.
Well, basically, from where I was before, I'd have to organise the carpets to be sent to the house.
Yeah.
Where now, the owner of the company, I tell him which carpets I want, he buys them, and he's at the house when they're delivered. So he takes care of the delivery, he takes care of the maintenance work, he goes in once a month to inspect the house for me as well.
Yeah.
So if the bathroom needs fixing, he can spot problems before they actually happen.
Yeah.
Which is essential when you go to rental houses.
The thing is, if you just move tenants in who are unreferenced and you move them in because you're desperate to just get a quick tenant, and then you don't have anybody going and checking up on the property, you don't have a good management company, you don't have them credit checked, you're asking for problems really, aren't you?
That's just the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
But something is going to happen.
Yeah. So what are the lessons then? What are the practical lessons of making sure that you don't have big problems with these? Because you can't argue with the return on investment. The return on investment is very, very high. The problem is if then you have a tenant trash the place or lots of void periods, what would you say the practical lessons to eliminate that risk are?
I would say for me, it's find the actual right find the right estate agents. Absolutely key. I've used some in the past that couldn't rent the house out, and they told me that my price for rent is too high.
Yeah.
And when I changed estate agents, they said to me, no, it's not the price of the rent, it's just that they weren't marketing the property correctly. So once I changed the correct estate agent, things just got much better. Also, mindset. You can't worry about real property all the time. It doesn't do you any justice. It just makes you ill. Yeah. So you've got to have a very positive outlook and just think your properties are going to be fine because you've got a good team that's there looking after it for you.
Yeah.
Because I spoke to a lot of people who asked me, Gareth, how do you buy properties up north if you can't go and inspect them every day? And I'm going, well, I don't need to. I employ other people to do it for me. They look after the property. I don't have to worry about it. I don't worry about it because with every property I basically purchase, I also make sure that there's a year's money in the bank for any voids.
Yeah.
So if it isn't rented out for 6 months or 7 months, I'm not worried about it because there's money in the bank that can look after that one property.
Yeah.
So that's very important.
That's brilliant. Really, really key lessons there, really. Key lessons. Talk to me about how you've managed to save the deposits and stuff as well, because I know that's been something you've done really well. Now you're moving on to doing things like lease option agreement, sourcing properties, and different stuff, which is kind of the cheating way. But up until now, you've worked really hard to save the deposits. Tell me a bit about how you've done that.
Well, basically, we invested in training, your training and other financial training as well. And one of the key aspects there was break down your finances so you know exactly what's going on. So we decided to get rid of all luxuries, as you can say, like Sky TV and everything else. So we created 4 accounts. One is emergency funding, where we put money into every month for emergencies. Yeah. The second is the fund account that we use for spending, just for going out for meals and movies and things. The third one is expenses of things that we need to fix around the house, maintenance and things like that. This is our private one. And then the third one is basically a savings account just for investments. Yeah. So we put money in there every month. We don't move money by ourselves. It's done automatically. So we don't get involved in that process. Yeah. For the bank accounts for the property, we got exactly the same thing set up, where when people pay their rent, we take 45% for the mortgages and keep that in one account, and then the rest gets broken up into maintenance, savings, and more investments, basically. Yeah. So we can buy more properties. So,
and that way you can see exactly what's coming in, what's going out.
Yeah.
You can work out, because sometimes people don't even know what their properties are giving them as a return, because they don't. The money's coming here, going there, and they've got no idea. So that's really good that you're doing that. Yeah. And what we've all been said, now you've got the properties up and running, you've got them tenanted, with all the budgets in place. What kind of return on investment are your 2 properties giving you?
The first one's given me over 20%, and the second one I would say is 19%. The property down south, it's probably in the region of 17.5%.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Love that. So what are your plans for the future then?
The plan for this year is, because we set goals every year, is to get more buy-to-lets this year, 4 more. Yeah. And then in the future, get involved in build-to-rents, because I can see there's a big place in the market for build-to-rents in this country as well. Yeah, fantastic. So,
what have been the real key learning points through not only the training, but also actually doing the do and going out there and viewing so many houses? What have been the real key learning points as an investor?
for me, it was basically learning everything about your patch, learning exactly what's happening in the area that you're going to invest in.
Yeah.
Because we went to look at areas where we weren't completely comfortable with the area.
Yeah.
But once we knew exactly that there's actually industry and funding coming to that area, then we'd actually do that. And it's just knowing your numbers. We've got an Excel spreadsheet. So when we actually make offers on properties, we go according to the Excel spreadsheet, and we don't go anything over the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, so, fantastic. Love that. And how have you changed? Because I know when you know we've become friends now, and you've invested really, really well. You've been very, very hands-on. You've implemented a lot of what we've learned. As a person, how would you say you've changed over the last since you started investing over the last year and a half?
As a person, I've changed my whole mindset. I've stopped worrying. I've stopped my anxiety about everything. I've basically turned my mind into a mini computer, if I can put it like that.
Yeah.
For me, property is a numbers game. Every day I get up and I think, okay, I've got to make 50 phone calls today to find deals, and I won't stop until I've made 50 phone calls.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I've become much more productive in everything I do because I apply that same format to every other area of my life. So instead of thinking about, oh, how am I going to do that, or should I do that, there's no thought. This is what I have to do today, and I'll do that first.
Yeah.
To make sure it's done. Only then do I do other things.
Love that. And you've been really resilient. You know, we spoke earlier about not giving up. There are setbacks sometimes in property. Sometimes there's disappointments. I know you've had some really juicy deals that have fallen through literally sometimes the day before, right? Tell us about that one.
Well, a good example is we were negotiating a leasehold with a person that was looking to sell his house. So we decided that we'd offer him a figure based on a 5-year option, where we'd buy his house after 5 years. And he was really interested. And this was in Stockton-on-Tees. So he was really interested. And then the day before we were going to sign the contract, his brother said to him, no, I think you should rather sell this house. So it fell down right at that point. But you lose some and you win some.
Yes, absolutely. And you need to just celebrate your success, discipline your disappointment, and just keep moving.
And another example is below market values. I went to look at a property in Durham, and it was selling at 65,000 for a 2-bed. The estate agent said to me, "Would you make an offer on this?" I said, "I wouldn't give an offer more than 40,000 for it." And she was like, "No, the owner won't take that."
Yeah.
And she phoned me back the following Monday and said, "Would you like to revise your offer?" I said, "No, I'm only going to go up as high as 40,000. I'm not going to pay any more." And she said, "Sorry, the owner's not going to take that." And then 2 months later, I got a call from the estate agent going, "They'll take that offer, Gareth."
There we go.
There you go. So it's just don't give up. Just keep on going.
And you never know when the fruit of your labour is going to come out, do you? You can put a lot of work in and you can think, oh, it's been a really unproductive week. But then if you've put the work in, sometimes 2 months later, you might get a phone back like that.
Yeah.
So no, that's incredible. And I think as well, I know you're a very detailed person in a way. You take action, but you're numbers driven. And we were talking earlier about there's a lot of motivated idiots out there. And you know, property can be, if you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to package deals, and you're a compliant property sourcer.
I am.
So you've set it properly, so you can pass deals on and make money that way. You've bought single let properties. You've got lease option agreements now that you've learned and mastered, and you're ready to find some and do some. But how important do you think it is to get the right training before you go and start trying to make money in this industry?
It's vitally important. If you haven't had proper training, you're just going in circles, basically. If you get proper training, you've got a clear path, you know exactly what you need to do, and you can do it. Like, for instance, the £5,000 that you spent on that trashed property, that probably wouldn't have happened if you'd have had the right training and known how to vet tenants and stuff beforehand. Exactly. So it's water under the bridge now, but with the right training, that could have potentially been eliminated. But that's great. Have you made a lot of friends in doing the training as well? Do you feel like you've got people around you now? It's a fantastic community on Facebook and also offline as well. Yeah. It's nice being around like-minded people who are doing the same thing as you. Yeah. Because you get really good ideas and you learn more about the actual property game than you would be doing it by yourself. Yeah. So, and I think as well, a lot of the training is free. You know, you can about being a landlord. There's forums out there. There's there's articles, there's podcasts where you can learn about being a landlord, managing tenants, getting your power team together. The training that I do is very much about how to find deals and how to make money. But the everyday management side of it, I think a lot of it is just
putting the time aside to really just study up and learn. I think that's vitally important. What advice would you give to someone that was just sort of starting out and was wondering where to invest their money? What would you say to them?
I'd say come to the crash course to understand what property is all about.
Yeah.
And meet people who are on the same journey as you. It's absolutely important.
Well, I mean, the Property Investors Crash Course is a no-brainer, and it's free.
Yeah, and it's free, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a no-brainer. Well, I've been really pleased to see you do well. The deals that you've done have been incredible. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and look forward to seeing you smash it out of the park another year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gareth. God bless.
You too.
Cheers. My name's Samuel Leeds. Thank you for watching Winners on a Wednesday. Every single week we interview our success students for your inspiration. You can watch more right here on the playlist. There's a whole playlist of them. But what you'll notice is every single winner on a Wednesday, it always starts with them coming to my 2-day crash course. So if you would like to be a winner on a Wednesday, literally come on my crash course, and who knows, in 3 months' time, you could be here in my offices on this show as a winner on a Wednesday. So get yourself booked on the crash course, watch more, have fun. I'll see you next week.